The Kendrick Drake hip hop battle that pretty much held it captured the nation for a weekend, right?
Yeah.
It was the biggest hip hop battle since Jay-Z and Oz, which occurred like almost over 20 years ago. And so this generation hadn't really seen a hip hop beef of this magnitude. And it didn't just stay within hip hop, it became a mainstream story.
Mhm.
I thought it was unique for the Biden administration. I'm sure it was some young social media manager who was able to pull that over and kind of capture that moment. So I thought it was a unique spin on this whole narrative. But what's interesting, I put out before that video came out, I wrote an article that basically
I saw
compared
that.
yeah, that compare rap beefs to political debates.
Yeah.
And I was inspired to write that because Questlove, who we all love, from the Roots, he wrote something on online saying that hip hop is dead in comparison to the Kendrick and Drake rap battle. And
Mm.
so he caught a lot of backlash. And for me, I was just like, it's not really, it's rap beefs are similar to political debates. Of course, I say elections are ways that societies correct itself, right?
Mm.
And when you have two candidates going at each other, they do mudslinging, they talk bad about each other, and they basically want the people to know they want to discredit the other candidate to make sure that the people know that this person isn't worthy of being a leader.
Mhm.
And that's what was happening with the Kendrick and the Drake feud. It was basically Kendrick Lamar saying, look, this guy who is the biggest rapper in our generation, Drake, doesn't deserve to be the leader of our culture because he doesn't appreciate our culture. He doesn't give us any substance, and he's just someone who you can't trust. And he basically, over a span of several songs, Kendrick basically decimated
Mhm.
Drake, not from an artistic standpoint, but from a personal standpoint. He took away his character. He aimed at him as a person. Uh, and so that was a unique thing. And I say, we see candidates doing the same thing. We're going to see Biden and Trump do the same thing in November. They're going to aim at each other's character, and it's going to be debates, and the people are going to decide who they want to lead this society. And so, just seeing that there's this Kendrick and Drake thing, it's bigger than just hip hop. I think it's over the next generation, who's going to be the leader? What type of music is going to move the people? Where you have Kendrick, who has, you talk about the Black Lives Matter protests. He has an anthem, and all right.
Mhm.
Drake hasn't said anything about
Yeah, he's got a
siding.
few
Oh,
anthems actually. Kendrick.
yeah. Kendrick has a few
Yeah,
anthems.
he's got a couple of them.
Got
Yeah.
a few, and Drake doesn't have one.
Yeah.
And so it's just, with hip hop being something that speaks to the people, speaks to our culture, and for Drake not to have anything to say about anything of substance for all these years, it was a reckoning in terms
Mhm.
of hip hop. And so I know a lot of people are on Kendrick's side in terms of what he represents. Now the mudslinging of them going back and forth, that's another issue. There was a lot of, people said there was lies on both sides. But at the end of the day, I think that what Kendrick represents in terms of hip hop is a lot more significant than what Drake represents.
Can I say something here
Yeah.
to you? That was exceptionally well said. I I I hesitate to add anything. I famously, listeners of the show know that I famously jumped off the porch when J. Cole apologized. And I was like, hey, man, listen, there's no place for battles and beefs and stuff like that. Battling leads to beefs, and beef leads to, outcomes that aren't really favorable for Black people in our plight right now in this country. And then I had to kind of reel some of that back in um, after Not Like Us came out. And I'm like, this is really some good music. And, I kind of understand a little bit more. Um, but listen, man, what you just said I think that's everything that a person would need to know in a nutshell. Um, yeah. Who has more hits? Drake. He's got a team of people working with him, and their job is to make hits. He can sing and he raps, and he knows how to put together an album. As Kendrick famously said, you go to Atlanta, get the features, and whenever you need to, you go to the West Coast, and wherever you know that's your formula. But you know, Kendrick is if Drake is a hit maker, Kendrick is an artist. Um, Kendrick is somebody where once you listen to the song five, six, seven times, and something else will hit you that you didn't hear it the first, 4 or 5 times that you listen. Oh my gosh, that's what he was saying. That's wild. You know what I mean? And it's stuff that's buried deep in there. So the artistry is different. And this is why there's this kind of debate where Kendrick has more Grammys and Drake has more hits. You know what I mean? Kendrick is an artist and he's doing something for his people. And Drake is a hit maker and he's doing something seemingly for himself, right? And so when Kendrick levels these accusations of being like a colonizer and all this sort of stuff, you kind of feel it, and you see Drake cast in a different light. Now, make no mistake, I'm a huge fan of Drake. I play Drake songs all the time, all the time. And I'm a DJ still right now. I own 2 nightclubs, so I DJ frequently. And the DJs that work for me do as well. And so I dance to Drake music. I listen to it in the car. I love Drake, right? But when it's cast in that light and you're like, okay, Kenny, I see what, dang, I didn't really notice it. I didn't really notice it before. But again, after listening, to all those diss records, you're like, man, this is wild. And the one thing that I will say is that, as you mentioned, this has grown beyond hip hop with the Biden administration using, the lyrics of Euphoria specifically in their campaign ad. But, I was contacted. I have a friend that works for the BBC in London, and they wanted my input on the story. And so I'm on with the BBC. And so, that goes to like Tanzania and all over Africa and of course all over Europe. And that's more of like a global network. And so it goes to show you just how big of a of a battle this is and how defining it is. And, on the ground here being on the West Coast, this past weekend, I was at my club like I normally do, and everyone's out having a good time and we're playing songs for them and, hosting the party and make sure everything's good. People are popping their bottles and, birthdays and bachelorette parties and everything like normal. And then Not Like Us comes on. And, you know, and we have like a special DJ edit that starts with the like the chant that comes at the end of the song. Instead, it starts at the beginning. It's like, let me hear you say OV, whatever. And then the people are chanting it just immediately. And then we had to bring the song back, and that's not something we've ever done before. So it just goes to show how big this is. And you know what? I'll take it a step further. This has inspired other people to try to air out their grievances too. I know that, Soldier Boy has uh gone on the offensive with Metro as well and 21 Savage. And even Shaq. Shaq had put out a song about um what's his name? Help me out. What's his name?
Shannon Sharp.
Shannon Sharp. Shannon Sharp. And I know that because I have the lyrics here. It says your whole demeanor is faker than new rap beefy. You're soft before you get fly. You'd rather tweet me. I was in 3 different cars when you was in 3 feet. In 3 feet, all I see is dollar signs. They come in 3D. Make it hot. Ain't nowhere around my degrees. You're not in my spot. You're like a peewee. So these diss records are flying back and forth, man. And I admittedly don't know too much about the Shaq and Shannon Sharp background story. Maybe you do. But this new phenomenon is just kind of, well, I guess not a new phenomenon, but it's certainly been reactivated. Um, so yeah, just an interesting development of things.